It's pretty common knowledge that owning horses is a lot of work, but sometimes I don't think people truly realize just how much work it is. So in today's video, I wanted to cover 7 signs that you may not be cut out for horse ownership. You may not be cut out for horse ownership if you can't manage your money. So unfortunately, I think there's an epidemic happening in the world and in America right now where it's not necessarily that people aren't making enough money to own horses, it's that they can't manage the money they have. If you do it right, you can have horses on a budget. It's actually very easy to do, and I've basically owned horses my whole life on a budget. But if you cannot manage your money and you're not good with your money and knowing where your money's going at the end of each month, it's going to be very hard to take care of a horse. Mainly because horses usually garner monthly expenses. You're paying board, feed, hoof care, things like that. And then on top of that, you may have some random expense that may pop up, like a vet bill, or maybe you have to trailer your horse somewhere and you have to pay to get them shipped. And so these expenses can come up randomly, and if you haven't managed your money and you don't have savings, then that's going to make it much more difficult. And if you have an animal looking to you for all of their care, you can't afford to not manage your money or not be able to take care of them. You may not be cut out to be a horse owner if you lack self-discipline. And the biggest aspect I see with this in horses is that at some point you are going to get burnt out. And I know people may argue with me in the comments about that, but burnout usually happens when you are just doing the same thing every single day. You're putting in a lot of effort. When it comes to horses, you have to push through the burnout. Like, you can't just decide to take a break when you own this animal that needs you and requires attention from you. Like, I just went on a year-long trip with my horses. I was with them every single day, morning, noon, and night. And of course I experienced burnout through that, but just giving up wasn't an option. I had to see to their needs. And so if that is something you struggle with a lot, that's going to be very hard for you as a horse owner. There are ways, of course, to mitigate this. So if you have your horse at a boarding stable where someone else is seeing to a lot of their care, you won't feel as much of the burden to take care of your horse every day, or like to make sure they're alive, basically. And I think that is one of the most helpful ways to avoid burnout. But yes, at the end of the day, your horses are always going to take up mental space in your head. And that is just something you need to give them. And you can't afford not to give them. You may not be cut out to be a horse owner if you lack emotional regulation. And this kind of hints on our last point. If you cannot separate your emotions from your actions, you are going to have a very hard time as a horse owner. Not only dealing with burnout, like I already mentioned, but then also when it comes to working with your horse. I see a lot of new horse owners get horses and they suddenly become extremely frustrated with them, because owning a horse for the first time is a very overwhelming experience for anyone, and there's a lot of things you have to learn simply just by experiencing it. Like, that knowledge unfortunately doesn't really get passed down to people. And so a lot of people get very frustrated, and a lot of people give up at that point and they just go ahead and sell the horse. So if you want to own a horse, you need to be able to be willing to put in the time and effort. And even though the situations may be frustrating or overwhelming, you just need to turn yourself into a problem solver, and you need to compartmentalize your emotions over here and focus your problem solving over here. A lot of the problem solving you'll do when it comes to owning a horse is centered around the horse's care. As a first-time horse owner, you may have never taken care of a horse before, so figuring out how to do those things is very important. And mind you, when you have horse people around you, you're going to get 1,000 different opinions. So I created an online course that walks you through every different aspect of horse care so you can get the basics and the foundation of what your horse needs. So that is the Horse Care Keys for Success course. The link is in the description, or you can check it out at shop.equinehelper.com. You may not be cut out to be a horse owner if you're unable to meet physical demands. And I'm not just talking about riding your horse. A lot of people can own horses and not ride them. What I'm talking about is the physical labor that goes into caring for horses. So a lot of people don't realize this, but you need to be strong. You need to be able to lift hay bales, carry water buckets, clean stalls, potentially walk a humongous massive field looking for a horseshoe your horse lost, and just these pieces that people don't really think about. Another great example is if you have to clean out your horse's feet. There are muscles and strength that go into that a lot of people actually can't do. It does help to have a big, strong man. I utilize my husband's strength a lot so that I don't have to do all the heavy lifting. But if he wasn't around, that means I would have to do it, and I would have to be willing to do it. If you can't meet the physical demands of caring for your horse, not only is that a safety risk to yourself, but it's also a risk for your horse and their needs not getting met. You may not be cut out to be a horse owner if you have some big life changes coming up. One example specifically I'm thinking about is teenagers. You know, teenagers usually want a horse. I was a teenager who wanted a horse, but then they're not thinking ahead to when they go off to college and what's going to happen to that horse. So even if they're off at college, that horse is still going to need care. It's still going to need you to pay for its board and to see that it's alive and doing well and all of those things. It can be very emotionally gut-wrenching to have to sell your horse as a teenager. Or if you know you're moving in a few years and you're planning a big move, purchasing a horse at this time may not be the right time. The bottom line is to think ahead. I don't think people realize the emotional toll that goes through selling an animal. It's very hard because a lot of times you buy that animal planning to keep it the rest of your life. Horses live 30 years, and that's a very long time, and unfortunately, a lot of people will have life changes to where suddenly they can't care for that horse anymore. You may not be cut out to be a horse owner if you just want to have fun. And you may be thinking, what do you mean? Everything about horses is fun. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't see it like that. If you're someone who you just want to go trail ride maybe twice a month, and that's all you want to do, you shouldn't get a horse. The reason for this is, first of all, not many horses can just be pulled out twice a month and go do what you want them to do perfectly. The majority of horses need consistent work in order to operate at a level that's safe for you to ride them. Many times I see people purchase horses and they just aren't willing to put in the effort to continue the horse's training or even just work with the horse on the side throughout the week. And then the horse's training and behavior suffers, and then the person just gets frustrated because they're not able to do what they want to do. In this case, it's better for you to just pay a riding company to go take you out on a trail ride rather than spend money on a horse that you're not going to commit time to. You may not be cut out for horse ownership if you have unrealistic expectations. So if you haven't been around horses that much, but you've watched Heartland or Yellowstone and you just want to enjoy the lifestyle, you need to think twice. It's okay to be inspired by those shows, but there are things you need to know and do before you just go purchase a horse. As a horse person, I can attest that it takes years to garner your trade and your craft and your understanding about horses. Like all the effort that goes into taking care of them and training them, it's a lot of work. I've seen so many people, unfortunately, just jump into horses without knowing anything, and then they are constantly overwhelmed and frustrated because it's a lot of information, and to go from 0 to 1,000, that is overwhelming to people. And unfortunately, when people do that, the horse suffers. So what I would recommend is stick your toe in the water. Find a barn that you can go and experience horses, go on some rides, take some lessons, learn some horse care. I think there's a plethora of horse farms that need help in labor, and they will, pay for your help. Or there's volunteer programs where you can be around horses and get to learn about them, and usually you get to do it for free like that. Work your connections. It's very easy to do in the horse world. A lot of people are very giving and willing to share their knowledge in the horse world. Once you have done that, your expectations will now be more realistic, and you can tell whether or not horse ownership is right for you. If you've heard all my points, but you're still committed to getting a horse, be sure to check out that online course that walks you through every aspect of horse care you need to know so that you can be prepared when you purchase your equine friend.